Okay, so I'm going to be talking about a negative body image today. So I think that you have a good idea of what body image is, but um, it's regardless of how their body is actually presenting, and it can consist of how people think and feel about their body, how they perceive their size and shape of their body, and the actions that they're taking in regards to this. So it could be like checking in or altering or concealing their body. And why I thought this was important to talk about is because even if this isn't something that they were presenting in therapy with, I think that this is likely very frequent within our clients. So I thought that it would be good for us all to have a discussion on this. So just going into some of the prevalence on it, most studies show that this is emerging in childhood. And something I thought was really interesting was that some studies were showing that problems between parent and child relationships worsens the image of self. So if you already know that that's like a vulnerability, that could be some telling information. But yeah, the prevalence is very high. Approximately 50% of pre-adolescent girls and 30% of pre-adolescent boys just like their body. And then in adults, it's increasing. Approximately 60% of women and 40% of men have negative body image issues. And that remains pretty stable across lifespan. So how that could look just symptoms wise is frequent self-weighing, mirror checking, avoidance of public situations, extreme measures to not see their body, excessive makeup or baggy clothing, excessive plastic surgery, or just powerful negative emotions when thinking about their body. This can also be associated with body dysmorphic disorder, eating disorders, low self-esteem, depression, social anxiety, impaired sexual functioning, and self-harm. Our cultures and society have a huge impact on our influence of this. And so the ideas and values that all of these things place on people can make them want to adapt or conform. So some of those things being gender, age, size and shape, abilities, illness, skin color, their levels of modesty, hair, and clothing. So now getting into some of the interventions with this. Okay, so these are just some topics to explore. So some of it could be causes, triggers, memories, and association with body image. So going into all of that with them, identifying triggers could be really helpful for getting additional information, some insight in those areas. Traumas also can be linked to poor body image. So if you know that that's also something that they're presenting with, that could be a variable in that. You could explore clients' core beliefs of, these are some very common ones in regards to body image, but weight being their entire sense of self, and then weight fluctuation being bad, as opposed to being quite normal. This could help reveal and then change those underlying beliefs. You could explore with them self-love and healing that relationship towards their body, getting into that gratitude piece and finding gratitude for what their body can do versus what it looks like. So leaning into the things that their body can do for them. Some examples could be like birthing their children, or like these legs ran this race for them, or just I'm grateful that I can walk down the street and feel the sun on my face, and that my heart and lungs pump and work for me to experience another day here. Just finding like gratitude for the things that your body is doing for you versus just aesthetics. And then also working towards body neutrality. So talking with the client that they don't necessarily have to like that the way they look to be able to still treat their body with respect, and finding out like how they can make this matter less to them. So it doesn't have to be body positivity, but just like, how do we make the negative less? So you could explore things like, what do you care about? And how do we make the body the least important part about you? Because that's often like a big point of fixation and like body image work is like, that your body is the least interesting part about you. So putting a lot of emphasis on all those other things that we really like. And yeah, so just getting to that point of neutrality within that, and not necessarily, because a lot of clients might push back that like body positivity feels inauthentic, but that's not really what we're getting at here. It's a point of neutrality. And like some statements like this could be, instead of being like, I hate the way that I look, you just can start by pivoting that to like, yep, that is my face. And it's more of a neutral stance on that. Getting into some values work with them could be really helpful. So exploring their values and their version and definition of health. So an example of this would be like, do you want to be as small as you can be, or a long and healthy and happy life? Would you rather be the skinniest girl in the room or the happiest girl in the room? And how is your body image holding you back from being happy? So some of these kind of like prompting questions, or not necessarily that direct, but, you know, kind of getting at that, the discrepancies there. A question that always stands out to me is one kind of like, in your eulogy, I guess, what do you want people to say about you, or to know about you, or like, what do you want your legacy to be, like those kinds of things? Because I think that helps people really zoom out on issues, because a lot of the times with body image, we're so zoomed in. But like thinking about big pictures like legacy and eulogy can really help to zoom out on some of those things. And that's really speaking to their values in that regard. Because I don't think that a lot of people are going to answer with like, my eulogy, I want people to say I was the smallest person they knew. So that could be helpful for talking about. And then exploring their version of health. So like, would they rather feel tired and hangry and agitated, or would they rather feel energized and bubbly? So really being able to tune into kind of some of those things, and exploring like what health really means to them. Because, you know, if they're doing a lot of extreme things to adhere to their body image standards, then it might be out of alignment with their version of health. And then exploring what body image means to them. These could be points of exploration in session of, what is body image to you? And talking about how perceptions are constantly changing, and that their perception of self can be influenced by other variables in life. So if they're like really killing it at work right now, or having a great day, or like just bought their first house, like things like that, those are all going to be influencing their perception of self. And so it's just really telling that perception is always changing, and it doesn't have anything to do with their actual body. And that's why size is never indicative of perception of self. As we know, some of the most unsuspecting people are very insecure. So discussing on how it's very much an illusion that if you change your body, you won't feel this way. And that's kind of like what this picture here is getting at, where she's like, I'll be happy when I'm skinnier, when I have abs, when I'm a size small. I think we all know that those things are constantly, the goalpost keeps moving on a lot of those things with clients. So really the answer there is when I stop analyzing my reflection, and when these things aren't the priority. So yeah, I guess kind of discussing how some of those things are present for them. And further on that, asking some of these questions like, how do you see yourself as a person? And when do you feel confident in ways that are something besides looks? So like, what makes you feel most confident in life? And then like, what draws you to other people? What makes you value that relationship? It's probably not their looks. And yeah, back to that kind of like eulogy thing. When someone dies, what do you miss about them? It's likely not going to be the way that person looked. And so kind of digging into some of those things, and all of these being areas of discussion for processing and exploration, to kind of dig deeper into some of those things. So identifying and challenging some of those irrational thoughts that feed the body image dissatisfaction is going to be really helpful. Um, so when we identify the extreme thoughts that aggravate our body image problems, and then find ways to counter them, could be a definitely more healthy way for talking to oneself. So discussing what are the extreme thoughts that make you feel bad about your body and what's wrong with that pattern of thought, and then having them come up with some reasonable arguments against that, and then finding ways to restructure those into kinder thoughts. And as an activity, I'm sure you guys have done this with clients, but you could do the 2 columns. And on the one side, thoughts that are coming up about themselves, and then working with them to find thoughts to challenge some of those thoughts that are coming up for them. And then also you could discuss relaxation techniques to use when some of those negative thoughts are coming about too. So they can be challenging them and pairing them with a relaxation technique of some sort. And then here's just some specific reframe examples that I thought could be helpful if you hear clients saying some of these things. So I must have a perfect body, or else people won't like me. You could counter that with, I like people who don't have perfect bodies, and obviously other people do too. And if someone doesn't like me because I don't look like that, then their priorities are screwed up. My body is awful because of insert their response. And yeah, finding some other counters. My stomach might not be flat, but I'm healthy and my family and partner still love me unconditionally. Or just because my blank isn't perfect, that doesn't mean that I'm unattractive. Or my body is the least interesting part about me. Another one could be, because my body is imperfect, I'm worthless. Yeah, that might be one of those like more underlying core beliefs, not necessarily something they might be directly stating. You could counter that with, discussing with them that fitting the societal ideal doesn't make a person good. What makes a person good is their character, how they treat people, and that they're a person of worth, even if their body isn't ideal. And then this last one, I hate my body because it's so different from the beautiful bodies I see in the media or at the gym. You can counter that with, it's unfair to hate my body just because it's not perfect. A perfect body is unrealistic for me, as it is for most humans. Very few people have the genetics, time, and resources to look like that. That one just being just talking about the realistic side of things. Now kind of just examining with them the influence that advertising and celebrities and social media are having on their ideas of beauty. So that's kind of speaking to that last statement there that could be coming up with clients. Just because all of these things oftentimes create an internalized, unrealistic standards that people set for themselves. In discussing with clients about how, like, when we're looking at media, it's often like the top percentage of people they're in the world. Everything's on a global scale now. And so comparing ourselves to the top percent of people in the world is very unrealistic. These are going to be like the most beautiful and toned and muscular and thin and people. So just kind of like discussing that idea with them. And a quote that I really like is comparison is the thief of joy. And just kind of like exploring that with clients, like, what does that mean for you? And just, when maybe it could be helpful with clients when they're realizing that like some of this comparison is coming up for them, like identifying like, hey, this is actually just, going to bring me down even more. So being able to bring that into awareness. And yeah, encouraging them to kind of change their algorithm on social media if they do believe that this is an influence in some of these thoughts that they're having. And yeah, if they start following more people that are just more in line with realistic beauty standards versus some of those maybe not very authentic influencers and pages and groups, that could be helpful. I don't know if like on Instagram, but if you like save posts, that's going to feed into your algorithm. So you can encourage clients to start saving more posts that are in regards to like body neutrality or positivity type things, just to kind of start reworking that algorithm. And then obviously like unfollowing ones that are harmful that they might have identified. I identified, or I put 3 on there of like pages that I think are pretty good influences, all surrounding like body image and some positive messaging surrounding that, and just being pretty authentic with things. And then, I kind of wanted to show a video, but now I don't know how to get to that. Maybe I'll come back to this at the end.
If you stop sharing, and then I think if you reshare, you'll have the option to share the video. Or unless you like, when you press share, if you share the entire browser versus a tab, that might do it too.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna drop it in the chat for later if you guys want to just watch it. It's literally just like a reel on Instagram, but it was I was sharing it because it was one of the people that I listed on there. So just to give you like insight into what the content is that she's sharing if you need things with clients. But can you guys see that link? I'm getting back to it.
It's not popping up.
Oh. Okay, is it showing now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, got a little off topic there, but yeah, I think that reel is a good one, and I find it to be, yeah, really helpful because I think that if you know that your client is on social media a lot, it's going to be very valuable to really put an emphasis on like how that is affecting some of this too, if that's constantly the narrative that they're getting on things or the images that they're seeing. And then also just examining some of the interpersonal interactions that they're having in their lives and like how that could be affecting body image. The things that people are saying about their own bodies, about our bodies, about other people's bodies all around us is all feeding into kind of that narrative. And hearing other people critique others' appearances could lead clients into fear that they're going to be judged and maybe making them a little hypervigilant on these sorts of things. So discussing that with clients, if this is being perpetuated by someone in their life and some of that like thinking and narrative. And yeah, particularly with maybe some of their parental figures too. I think that it's quite common that a lot of the times it's like, you know, things that they've heard their mother say about themselves and now that's internalized. And so discussing like, whose thoughts are these? Is this mom's or is this mine? And so getting into that and helping them kind of identify like going back to that values piece, like, oh no, these are my values now. Like that's mom's values, but these are my values. And then, you know, if necessary, they could then maybe discuss some solutions for that. Avoiding or distancing from people that are overly focused on physical appearance might be helpful for that, or just, you know, not having to cut people out of your lives, but practicing some sort of statements with them to kind of pivot or shut down some of those looks focused conversations. So just a statement like, do you mind if we talk about something else? I'm trying to focus less on how I look and more on just being healthy. So maybe some assertive statements or just discussing any sort of boundaries that might be helpful if you've identified that any interpersonal interactions are feeding into some of this negative body image. And then just some specific tools and techniques. If they are really big into social media and that is having a large effect on them, maybe just discussing what it would be like for them to have a little bit of a social media detox. Then creating a list of things that they like about themselves that are not looks. So that's kind of speaking to some of those questions we discussed with earlier with like what makes you confident and like gratitude for your body. Surrounding themselves with loving, positive people in real life and online. So that's kind of speaking to some of those, like evaluating the relationships in your life and how those are affecting it. Writing down the negative things one says about their body and then rewriting those messages in a more self-respecting way. Having them redefine beauty in a less superficial way and openly discussing this in session. Taking comfort into consideration when choosing clothes. This one specifically is speaking to a lot of the times if people don't feel very confident in the clothes that they're wearing, that could be really feeding into a lot of the body image things. So seeing how like that is affecting how they're feeling about themselves. And then exploring activities that allow you to discover how your body works and what it can really do. So I don't know if this might be like physical movement for them or like new just different physical feats that they're interested in, or just any sort of like new sport or something that they want to try. But a lot of the times, and this is kind of a fine line because sometimes, so it's interesting that I was reading on research in this, and it can sometimes go two ways where like people find, you know, a lot of power in like weightlifting or some of these other sports, and then they start to have like a lot of positive emotions towards their body for what it can do and feeling a sense of accomplishment with that. But sometimes there is the opposite effect in which it does also then create more problematic thinking down the road. But just, yeah, that being said, just exploring activities that allow them to have appreciation for their body outside of what it looks like. And then lastly, spending time volunteering to help others. A lot of the research just showed that the more time that they spend like less time thinking about themselves, more time thinking about others, it was really helpful and really combating a lot of that negative messaging. And then at the end, I just put some of the sources. Simple Practice CEU did have one on body image that I found to be really helpful. But I don't know if I don't really know what happened to. I'm not up to date on like the Simple Practice change now and what like that's going to be moving forward. So I don't know if that's going to be on this next platform here, but that one was really helpful for a lot of this. But yeah. Any questions, thoughts, or yeah, anything coming up for people?
I was
You
gonna
guys
say, I
ended
really,
this. Sorry, go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say, I really liked the like suggestion that you gave about kind of changing like the people that you're following on social media and maybe following like some people who just have a little bit more of like a realistic standard of like body image. Because I feel like that's something that I've gotten feedback on with clients that's like really helped them in the past too. Because I think, you know, if they are on social media a lot, like to see just somebody else being like vulnerable and open and realistic and having someone that they can like relate to, I think is super helpful. So I just liked how you added that part in there for clients to feel like, okay, yeah, let me find someone who's relatable rather than someone who's putting out these like really unrealistic standards. That's feeding in to all that that's happening.
Yeah, finding people that like they can relate with more, that look more like them. Because if 98% of your algorithm is people that you can't ever relate with or attain to be, or that look nothing like you, then that would definitely feel really defeating and feeling like it was feeding into a lot of that.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you mentioned that part, Rachel, because I put down something similar. Like I literally just like wrote like realistic body standards, like kind of question mark, because I feel like what's hard, and maybe this is just like for me personally, like even on Instagram, like it's difficult to even know what realistic body standards are anymore. I feel like it was funny because when I was a kid and like a teen, I used to think like, I don't know, there was like a few things in terms of like realistic body standards. And like, this is realistic, this isn't. Oftentimes it was like looking at celebrities or like magazines. You'd be like, okay, like this is not realistic. Like this is a celebrity. They have like all the time, money, and everything in the world. But I feel like and I thought like as a kid, I'm like, oh yeah, when you become an adult, things will probably get easier. Like, just so ironic and funny and not true. And now I feel like as an adult, in the way things are, it's like even more difficult to know what's realistic and what's not, between like all of the millions of things that someone can do to their body. Just one, to your body itself, and then two, like the editing of everything you can do online. You're like, what even is realistic anymore? Like, what does that even mean? Like, I don't even know. Like, I don't even have like an image in my head of what that could be anymore. So it's like, yeah, I'm just seeing that, like, oh, what's realistic? Like, I guess I just see like all these bodies and I just think like, oh, this is just like typical standard, like what people do to their bodies now. And I didn't even think of like, well, what's actually realistic? Not for you to necessarily answer, not for you to have that answer, but I just think it's interesting to ponder. Like, I feel like, I don't know if it's like as I've gotten older, I've just seen like more and more is occurring that people can do with their bodies. It's like every square inch of a female's body, mostly. I feel like mostly females are targeted, but it's like every square inch there could be something done to make it better. And it's like, this is getting a little out of hand.
Well, that's what I think is like helpful with some of those pages where people are still posting like the not positive things. So all the flaws and like putting emphasis on those. So I don't know if you're familiar, but there's just a lot of pages that are sharing a lot of the like flaws. And I think that those are probably pretty like trustworthy sources of like, oh, well, that's what's realistic. I don't know if they're sharing their flaws, then I think that that's kind of a good maybe yeah, a little more in line with someone like they could be comparing themselves to. And not that that's encouraged, but yeah.
That's a great point, Sid. I was gonna say like I follow some influencers that have like realistic sized bodies that look like a lot of like a body that I kind of feel like is similar to mine or whatever. And it's great. And I also feel like at the same time, when they're not sharing the flaws, it's still easy to almost feel like to compare yourself to them. It's like, well, they have like a better eyes, or like they're more confident, or they're funnier, or whatever it may be. So it's cool to see them also have that sense of vulnerability with the followers of like, I even feel down a lot of days about like how I look. And so it just makes it like more like relatable, I guess. And just not even relatable, but just like it almost helps you to feel like it's okay to feel like it's okay to feel unsatisfied sometimes, but at the same time, it's not gonna like hold me back from still treating my body with respect or treating it myself with kindness and patience. So yeah, I like that idea of like kind of showing those flaws and showing that everyone has like those down days. Yeah.
Yeah, I hate to admit that I picked up on this as an observation, but I think that a lot of people did. But I'm not sure if like you guys follow the Kardashians, but there's a very big discrepancy now in like what most of the sisters post versus like what Kourtney posts now. And I don't know if like you've noticed in the past couple of years, but she used to be like them where it was like only perfect images and they got to look really great in all of them. But a lot of the Kourtney, the past couple of years, hers show like her stretch marks and like a lot of cellulite and very much like normal features. Whereas like you would never see your sisters posting that. And even like the fact that I notice these things is telling to like what society puts in my head of like, oh my gosh, like she posted a picture with, that angle. Like, and not that I'm saying that with judgment, but just like, that's not the expectation. Like, that's nothing like her sisters are doing. And so it's just like things like that. Whereas then when I don't know, it's like Courtney's is definitely more realistic now and in your head, as opposed to like maybe what her sisters are posting. And so that's like, yeah, just kind of comes to mind with this. I don't know if anybody knows what I'm talking about, but
I'll have to look into it. I'll have to start. I didn't know that she was like doing more real, right? And again, I put like real in quotes because I'm like, I guess I could kind of think of this as like on a spectrum. Because you're like, okay, maybe like her sisters are over here, and she's like, hey, I'm real, but it's like, but how much is still enhanced? So it's like that's where it's like such a mind trick. Is it's like, oh, like wait, she's like keeping it real, and it's like, but that real still might be like tens of thousands of dollars a month of like making, and it's like, right. And so that's what's so trippy about nowadays is it's like people even like when I got my makeup done, the artist was like, do you want me to like do like natural glam? I'm like, okay, so let me get this straight. You're gonna spend like 2 hours doing my makeup so I can look natural? Like, wait, what are we talking about here? Like, I'm like, no, I don't need natural glam. Make it look like I have makeup on. But it's just like so funny. Like, it's just like, oh, what a
yeah, no, I don't state that as an example of someone to look up to or to set as the benchmark of expectations, but I'm just noting at least the shift in some of those, some of these trends.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important to, you know, just bring everything like, body image is so interwoven into so many different things and topics that we can discuss with our clients. And, you know, I know Sydney and I have touched on like, okay, self-worth and confidence, and, you know, then all of those different areas of where we can explore. And yeah, really being able to relate that to, okay, well, when you are looking at these different influencers and these people on social media, what does that do to your self-worth on top of, you know, comparing yourself and your body? It's just, it's this whole, you know, and that's where that mind-body connection truly comes in. So, yeah, I think it's such an important topic to explore, and to, you know, have all the tools that you gave us is very helpful, just to, you know, have it all in one nice spot in one little basket.
Totally. Yeah, thank you for that. It is compiled like really well. So I'm hoping you'll send us the slides.
Yeah.
I was gonna take photos of them, but
I'll definitely send out.
I feel like this is a topic we could talk about for like a long time. Like there's so many layers to it. It's so interwoven, and I'm sure that's probably how it is with like clients when this is like the number one thing they want to talk about, where it's like, whoa, like this is so layered. There's so much to it. So yeah, this is a great jump start for all of that.
Do you guys find this coming up in session? Like, is this ever prevalent? Okay.
Like all the time. I would say like at least one client a day, at least.
I would say it's most of my clients. Like it's always a topic of conversation. And you're right. I mean, it's so layered. Like there's so much that goes into your body image. And even what you were mentioning about the like your relationship with your parents, I've even noticed with a lot of my clients with eating disorders, it is a very complicated relationship with their mom, is where it's sort of sprouted from. And a lot of my clients too, like they talk about their moms having eating disorders, and like just that relationship between them and how body image is talked about in their home, like, or how bodies are supposed to look. It's not even body image, just what people look like. Yeah. It's really interesting. It's a huge topic.
Any other last things we want to share? I feel like we could do like a part 2 version of this, even if it's just like us having an open discussion about it all, and like, or even like in a when we do group consults, like if we had one topic in group consult about this, and like, okay, what are our clients struggling with this, and what are they saying, like, because it's coming up so much, to be able to just dive into it a little bit more. So something to think about, like if that would be helpful or you all are interested in it, we can kind of continue this conversation.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sydney. And
Yeah. Thank you guys.
forward to getting those slides.